Right, but somewhere right now the challenge that rating agencies face is one of integrity. So in terms of addressing that one big challenge that you face, would you then say that the investor pays model is really the way forward for the industry rather than the issuer pays model?
Yeah, I think there are multiple models that do exist, and they all serve different purposes and different roles. And at the moment, the industry has some companies that operate on an investor-paid model, and there are some who operate on an issuer-paid model. And with the oversight, then it's for the investors to decide in which model they have more confidence in. And depending on the more confidence they have in the model, they should be the ones to make the choice as to whose ratings and whose opinions they want to sort of use more in their investment decisions.
Right, but at Standard & Poor's, what's the view? Do you believe that both models can work, or do you believe the industry at this time needs to stick to the issuer pays model?
Yeah, I think our view is both models can work. Both models play a different role. And we think in either way, both models do require oversight, because to prevent any conflicts, as you said, even in the investor-paid model, because the investors have their own objectives, you have to make sure that the conflicts don't sort of come into the investor-paid model. As you point out, the potential for conflicts exists in the issuer-paid model. So possibility of conflicts exists in both models. Both models needs oversight to make sure there is integrity, as you said. And from our point of view, both models should exist, and if the investors should make the call as to where they have more confidence, whether in one of the models or in which institution or company they have more confidence in.
Right, now you did say both models can work. So what is Standard & Poor's doing about moving, or rather creating, an investor pays model as well?
Yeah, we in some ways have elements of the investor paid model. We provide a lot of our research, in more in-depth research, to investors who do want to subscribe to our research, which is a little bit like what many investor pays model companies do today, including in some cases when we are not asked to rate something by the issuers, then on occasion we choose to sort of provide our own insights about that security as to what we believe is the risk levels, and there the investors have the choice to sort of get that information from us in that case.
Right, but in terms of a direct investor pays model on a particular security, is that something that you're exploring?
As I said, we are in some ways already providing that, but we are also have an issuer paid model in our system also. So you know, it's both those models exist within our business in some ways.
Right. Now, would you say a step in terms of creating greater transparency within the industry is for rating agencies to disclose the fees they earn on the ratings they put out on various securities issued by companies? And also, do you believe that if rating agencies are made to adopt a standalone publicly traded company model, transparency actually can be brought about?
Yeah, I think more transparency on both the analytics, on how the conclusion for ratings was made, as well as how each company operates in bringing about the rating decision is a good thing. So whether if the disclosing the fees that we get on a particular issuer brings more confidence with people, we're all for it.
Right. And what about the publicly traded company model?
There are companies within this industry that are publicly traded, and so you know, continue to companies can exist in both the private sector and in a publicly traded, publicly listed company.
Sure, but Standard & Poor's isn't a standalone publicly traded company. You're part of a larger group. So is that something that internally is being discussed? Is that something you'd explore in terms of taking Standard & Poor's out as a separate standalone publicly traded company?
You know, it has worked very well for the last decades or several decades, and in fact, you know, Standard & Poor's was a very small entity in early 70s, and it was this support that we had from a parent company that let it grow into such an important role in the marketplace. So it has its own advantages, and you know, we see no reason why it cannot continue to succeed as it has in the past.
Right now, would you be of the view that greater competition in the credit rating industry can actually bring about greater transparency, or actually change the way the industry functions? Or would you believe that somewhere that can actually have the opposite effect?
Yeah, I think competition is always healthy, because competition brings more creativity and innovativeness, and more raising the standards in the marketplace, and the desire to serve more customers with more value add. So competition is healthy from in any angle that you think about. But as you rightly point out, this is a unique business where you have to be careful that the competition does not become based on quality of analytics. The higher the analytics, better, not lower the analytics. And there is always the risk of rating shopping that does exist in this industry, and that's what regulators and policymakers are focused on putting some measures to avoid rating shopping, and we are fully supportive of that.
Right now, one very large hedge fund manager in the US has accused the credit rating industry of being an oligopoly that has been nurtured by the US government. Would you agree with that charge?
Yeah. Look, in any sector, limited number of companies succeed and thrive because they invest, because they continue to add more value to the marketplace, and so similarly in this industry too, we have continued to invest. We have continued to show and demonstrate to the investors that we have a value that we have to bring to them. However, your one point is appropriate, that they were regulated in the sense that we were part of the regulations where it required many funds to use rated securities from NRSROs before they could invest in. And we do encourage the policymakers to look at that very carefully and minimize the places in which NRSRO ratings is part of the regulation, which requires funds to only invest in those securities that are rated by us. Having said that, it is absolutely our intent to continue to convince investors that we have a value to bring in the risk benchmarks that we provide to the capital markets, because that is such an important piece for the capital markets and for the institutions to be able to raise the capital to invest, whether it's in a company or a country. And it's only investment that allows for economic prosperity and job growth. So we know the role we play, and we want to continue to play that role.
Right now, according to some numbers that we have, the 10 rating agencies in the US together paid 40% more in the first quarter of 2009 than it did in the previous corresponding quarter towards lobbying charges. Now, should we from those numbers somewhere assume that increased payment towards lobbying charges has somewhere been an attempt to fight change within the rating industry, a change that could somewhere upset economic equations for you? Yeah,
it's a very interesting question. If you look at the amount of hearings, for example, the US Congress has had on the financial markets, it's probably been at the highest level than ever before. And in many cases, our analysts are called in to speak and opine and offer insights and research around the different topics that the congressional leaders want to research or look at or examine. And so we end up as an institution spending a lot more time in Washington around these topics than we have ever done before, including around regulations on us. They're always asking us questions. They're always asking us to provide information as to why things work the way they do work. So a big piece of that is educating the marketplace also, and investing in educating the policymakers. And so as a result, we spend a lot more time there. And part of the lobbying expenses, as it's measured and reported, is the amount of time we spend in Congress in trying to educate or in trying to respond to the questions they have, and that indeed has gone up.